Next up, we have Roger Moss, President and Director of Labrador Gold, please.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody, for attending here this afternoon to listen to the Labrador Gold story. Hopefully, by the end of the presentation, you'll agree that it's quite a compelling one. Forward-looking statements, I will be making some, and so please be aware of that. And this is where we're located. We're located in Canada, and more specifically on the island of Newfoundland, which is off on the east coast of Canada. And together with Labrador, it's the most easternmost province of Canada. I'm going to talk today about one project. We have four, but Kingsway is our main project that we've been active on since 2020, and I'll get into that in a little bit. We're really happy working in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's a very safe jurisdiction. It's supportive of mineral exploration and mining. And in fact, the government, I think it was last year, came out and said they'd like to see 4 new mines in production by 2030. So that's a good statement for a government to make that shows their backing of the industry. And I think right now we have two gold mines in the development stage in the province, and a lot of exploration that's been going on over the last 3 years. We've got a great team on the ground, a lot of experience in Newfoundland and a lot of experience in gold exploration, which is what we're doing there. Our shareholders have been very good. We've had strong support from our major shareholders, and that's enabled us to do a 100,000-meter drill program. We're getting to the end of it. We have about 13,000 meters left to go, and that's fully funded. We have about $9 million cash in the bank and no debt. So this is just a quick introduction to some of our shareholders. You may be familiar with some of them, like Eric Sprott, I'm sure, a major financier and investor in many different companies. He's invested in probably all of the companies that are working in Newfoundland, and I think I'll mention in a minute why he's so bullish on gold in Newfoundland. Palisades Gold Corp, Crescat Capital are also major shareholders, as is Newfound Gold, and that's an interesting one because Newfound Gold have the property immediately to the south of our Kingsway project. So this is a geology slide. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but this, I believe, is what encouraged Eric Sprott to make so many investments and large investment, particularly in Newfound Gold, and that is a comparison of central Newfoundland to the Abitibi Gold Belt. And we know that the Abitibi Gold Belt has produced a lot of ounces of gold over the 100-year-plus history of the belt. What we don't see in Newfoundland is that same amount of production because gold exploration in Newfoundland is relatively recent by comparison, probably on the order of 30 years. So not as much gold exploration has gone on there. So this is the immediate property holdings. Our holdings are shown here in blue. Newfound Gold's licenses are shown in yellow, and another company called Exploits Discovery shown in the purple mauve color. Newfound Gold kicked all this off in 2020 with this discovery that we see here of 92 grams a ton over 19 meters. Incredible intersection, and that actually started what became a staking rush and a gold rush that covered all of central Newfoundland. Fortunately, we were one of the early stage companies to get in there, and we staked, or we optioned this ground shown in blue. And the reason we optioned that particular ground and not other ground is because of this Appleton Fault Zone, the central dashed line that you see on the map. That is really important, and I'll get to that in a minute. Starting in 2020, once we were actually allowed to go into Newfoundland after the COVID protocols had all been worked out, we did a lot of work And we ended up with our first discovery in October of that year, a discovery of visible gold in what we call Big Vein. That allowed us to start drilling, which we did in April 1st of 2021, and we've been drilling ever since. That's where that 87,000 meters has come from. And without going into details of this slide, you can see that we've made discoveries every year since then, and including this year and including just a few months ago with a Nabi occurrence. So in total, we started from scratch. We developed 6 targets, we drilled 5, and we found gold in all 5 of them. And these are highlighted here. So an excellent discovery rate. And the reason for that is this Appleton Fault Zone. You can see here all the gold stars on our property, as well as down to the south on Newfoundland Gold's property. They're all aligned along that red dashed line, which is the Appleton Fault Zone. So our occurrences that we've discovered have been discovered along there. We've only drilled about 1.5 kilometers of this fault zone, and 12 kilometers of it exists on the property. So even though we've done a lot of drilling, there's a lot more ground to be tested by drilling, and we continue to do that right now. This is another way of looking at it here. The purple line going through the middle is the Appleton Fault Zone. You can see the occurrences from Golden Glove in the south, Nabi, the most recent discovery, Big Vein, Pristine, and Dropkick, all the way along. That's about 7-kilometer strike length where those 5 occurrences are located. This was the first one. I mentioned Big Vein, the discovery we made in October of 2020 after that initial phase of exploration. The outcrop of the vein is shown here on the lower right. It's a person sitting on top there for scale. And so it's a sizable vein. And the geologist actually called to his helpers and said, you guys have to come and look at this big vein when he found it. And the name stuck, and that's why we call it Big Vein. But what was more important is this. You can see here a slab through a boulder, which we found just down the slope from this vein outcrop. And this boulder was loaded with visible gold. You can see some of the gold in the picture there. And that was really what started us off with the drilling. And this is what Big Vein looks like now. This is a map, a plan map, so you're looking down as if you're hovering above it. And you can see again, the Appleton Fault Zone is cutting through this area. It's this fault zone that is so important for localizing gold mineralization in the area. We've done a lot of drilling at Big Vein. We've had some excellent intercepts, lower grade intercepts over long intervals, very high grade intercepts over some narrow intervals. So these are some of those high grade intervals with a lot of visible gold occurring in the quartz veins. So this is beautiful looking drill core when we see it. It's very similar to what Newfoundland Gold have down to the south. And I keep referring to Newfoundland Gold because they've been doing a lot more drilling than we have. They're on the order of 500,000 meters. So we're lagging behind with our 100,000 meter program, but still making discoveries along this fault zone. Pristine was another discovery we made back in 2021. Initially, we were disappointed with the results because they didn't sort of stack up the same way as what we'd seen at Big Vein. We didn't get that really nice visible gold in the drill core. And so we put that on the back shelf for a while. We came back this year because we hadn't felt that we'd really given it a good test. And when we came back, we actually had some new ideas, tested those, and came up with a really nice interval, which had lots of visible gold in it. So one of the things that I stress about this area is that you have to keep going, even if you don't hit it on the first time. It takes a lot of drilling, and it takes a lot of modeling to figure out how these veins are and where you're going to get the best intersections. This is a discovery we made this year, Dropkick. It was probably middle of this year. And again, the same story, developing this by following up on grassroots exploration. This one was actually drilled on a gold in soil anomaly. So prospecting, soil sampling are the main things that we've used to develop these targets. And then drilling, of course, is what we do to actually make these discoveries. This the drop kick is open-ended on both sides. We have to drill more to the north and more to the south to extend it. It's already over 360 meters in length and good potential for extending it. Again, in very close proximity to that Appleton Fault Zone. Golden Glove, another prospecting discovery. You probably heard, if you've been on many, at least grassroots type exploration talks, that you can't walk around anymore and find gold in outcrop, or any metals for that matter. They're all undercover. While in Newfoundland, because of that relatively short exploration history, you can still find this kind of gold at surface. And this is what we found here at Golden Glove. Lots of visible gold in the rocks. We haven't drilled this significantly. We did a short drill program there. We found some gold. We're actually going back there now, and we doing more drilling to follow up on the initial work. Nobby is the one I mentioned. We found about 3 months ago in outcrop, and we're actually drilling there already, which is kind of gives you an idea of how quickly we can get permitting done in Newfoundland from actually finding the outcrop, sampling it, getting the results back, deciding that we wanted to drill. All that's done in about 3 months. So we're drilling there. As I mentioned right now, we're hoping that that's going to be our sixth discovery, certainly from the samples that were taken from the actual vein outcrop. It looks pretty good. That's the outcrop that we're talking about, Nobby, and found by prospecting again. And this is what we're doing with the remaining 13,000 meters of our drilling. We are going to be focused between Golden Glove in the south and Big Vein, sort of halfway up this diagram here. A lot of drilling in that area to stepping out to the north from Nobby. And then we're also going to be drilling what we call the Gap. The Gap is the area between Big Vein and Pristine, and that area covers about 700 meters. So right now we're drilling up towards the north, towards Pristine, and hoping to extend the mineralization of Big Vein up towards Pristine. So this is more of a close-up of those areas, and you can see here that some of the faults that we're looking at. Faulting is important. I've mentioned the Appleton Fault Zone many times, but it's also faults that come off that zone. We call them splay faults that are important, and these are the ones that we're following down here in the Gap, and similarly down in the Nobby area to the south of Big Vein. So that's the story. I think one of the key features of this is that we're still making discoveries at surface after working there for 3 years. So we're still early on. We've only drilled a very small portion of the entire fault zone that appears to be like controlling the gold mineralization. We're continuing to drill another 13,000 meters, and that's all funded with about 9 million cash on hand at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. I have a question for you. What's the strategy of the company, and to what extent or not does that depend on how your neighbor advances?
Well, that's often asked, a question often asked, and I mean, the way it is in this particular area of central Newfoundland, basically we're on the same structure. It makes sense for some consolidation to happen eventually. We don't really control that. So my goal is basically drill as much as we can and find as much gold, so at some point, Newfound Gold or somebody else will come in and take us over.
Okay, Roger Moss, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.